You're sitting in traffic, watching your gas gauge drop, mentally calculating how much of your paycheck is literally burning away in your engine. Now imagine if I told you that right now, as we speak, there's a retired teacher in Texas whose car hasn't touched a gas pump in over 6 months. Not because it's electric. Not because it runs on vegetable oil. But because it powers itself using invisible energy that's floating through the air around you at this very moment. Sounds impossible, right? Like something out of a movie? Well, buckle up, because what you're about to hear will flip everything you thought you knew about cars, energy, and what regular folks like you and me can actually accomplish in our own garages. See, there's this underground revolution happening right now, and I mean literally happening in basements and backyard workshops from coast to coast. Regular people, and I'm talking about your neighbors, the guy who fixes your computer, the woman who grows tomatoes down the street, they're all quietly building vehicles that generate their own power. No gas. No charging cables. Just pure, endless energy pulled straight from thin air. And before you click away thinking this is some conspiracy theory nonsense, let me be crystal clear. These are real people with real cars that really work. I'm about to share 10 jaw-dropping stories that'll make you wonder why nobody's talking about this. It all started with this brilliant inventor whose ideas were so radical that most people wrote him off as crazy. His concept was beautifully simple yet mind-blowing. Radio waves, cell phone signals, Wi-Fi, all these invisible frequencies bouncing around us 24/7, they carry energy. Tiny amounts, sure, but energy nonetheless. And if you could capture enough of it, concentrate it, convert it, well, you'd have yourself an endless power source. That's exactly what a handful of brave Americans decided to test for themselves. Let's start with Mark, a physics teacher from the heart of Texas who spent his weekends tinkering in his garage like most of us might work on a garden. Mark wasn't trying to change the world. He just wanted to prove a point to his students that science isn't just textbook theory, it's something you can touch, build, and drive. So he took his beat-up Ford that had seen better days and started experimenting. He built these special coils, kind of like sophisticated antennas, that could pick up radio frequencies from the environment. His students thought he'd lost it. His colleagues placed bets on when he'd give up. But then something incredible happened. The car started. Not with a roar, but with a quiet hum. No fuel injection. No battery drain. Just pure captured energy flowing through circuits he'd assembled with his own hands. Word spread like wildfire through his small town. People came from neighboring counties just to see the car that ran on air. The local news showed up, then regional reporters. Suddenly, Mark's little experiment became a teaching revolution. His classroom transformed into an innovation lab where teenagers were building energy harvesters instead of just memorizing formulas. They weren't just learning physics anymore. They were living it, breathing it, creating it. Now, while Mark was inspiring students in Texas, way up in Montana, a farmer named Sarah was facing a completely different challenge. You know how expensive it gets driving those big trucks when you live miles from anywhere? Every trip to town was eating into her farm's profits. Gas prices were killing her bottom line. So Sarah, who'd been fixing tractors since she was 12, decided enough was enough. She dove deep into research, spending winter nights studying electromagnetic theory and frequency conversion. Sarah's approach was genius in its simplicity. She figured if radio towers could broadcast signals across hundreds of miles, why couldn't she reverse the process? Capture those signals instead of sending them? She fitted her old Chevy pickup with hidden antennas that looked like regular truck rails. Nobody would even notice them. She salvaged parts from junked radios, old cell towers, anything with the right components. The first test runs were disasters. Circuits fried. Capacitors exploded. Her neighbors thought she'd gone off the deep end. But Sarah's stubborn. It's that farmer mentality, you know? You don't quit when the weather's bad. You adapt. 6 months later, Sarah's truck was hauling feed, supplies, and produce without burning a single gallon of gas. The other farmers couldn't believe it. Here's this woman driving a truck that literally powers itself, and she built it using stuff most people throw away. She became a local hero, but more importantly, she proved that this technology wasn't just for city folks with fancy degrees. Anyone with determination could make it work. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, things were getting really interesting. Portland's tech scene was buzzing about Jason, a young software developer who took a different angle entirely. Jason understood code, algorithms, optimization. He approached the energy problem like debugging software. His modified Prius became his testing platform. But here's where Jason's story gets wild. Instead of just copying what others had done, he created a whole digital ecosystem around his car. Sensors monitoring energy intake, apps tracking efficiency, even predictive algorithms that adjusted the system based on location and signal strength. Jason documented everything. Every failure, every breakthrough, every single modification. He posted it all online, completely free, no paywalls, no exclusive content. Just pure, open-source innovation. His philosophy was simple. If this technology could help one person, it needed to help everyone. Within months, his tutorials had millions of views. People from around the world were building their own versions, improving on his designs, sharing their results. Jason had accidentally created a global community of energy revolutionaries. Down in sunny Miami, the story takes an even more practical turn. Carlos, a retired military engineer, saw potential beyond personal transportation. After witnessing hurricane devastation firsthand, watching people stranded without fuel or power, he knew there had to be a better way. His self-powered Jeep wasn't just about saving money on gas. It was about saving lives. Carlos incorporated multiple energy capture methods into one vehicle. Radio frequency harvesting, kinetic energy recovery from the vehicle's movement, even piezoelectric systems that generated power from vibration. The result was an emergency response vehicle that could operate indefinitely in disaster zones. No fuel supply chains needed. No charging infrastructure required. Just continuous, reliable power when people needed it most. Emergency response teams started taking notice. Here was a solution that could fundamentally change disaster relief. Carlos wasn't trying to get rich or famous. He was trying to make sure nobody else had to experience the helplessness of being stranded without power when catastrophe strikes. Detroit's story hits different though. This city that built America's automotive industry was watching its legacy crumble. But a group of former factory workers refused to let their skills die with the old economy. They formed this incredible collective, pooling their knowledge, their tools, their decades of experience. Together, they started converting old, abandoned vehicles into self-powered machines. Not fancy sports cars or luxury SUVs. Regular sedans that regular people could actually use. Their workshop became a beacon of hope in struggling neighborhoods. They weren't just building cars. They were building futures. Teaching young people that innovation doesn't require a college degree or venture capital. It requires heart, hustle, and the willingness to get your hands dirty. Every car they converted was given to someone who needed it. A single mom who couldn't afford gas. An elderly veteran whose fixed income couldn't cover transportation. A young entrepreneur trying to start a delivery business. These weren't just vehicles anymore. They were lifelines. Los Angeles brought its own flavor to the movement. Mia, an artist with an engineer's mind, saw these self-powered cars as more than transportation. She saw them as statements, sculptures, symbols of what's possible when creativity meets technology. Her converted Tesla became a rolling piece of art that literally glowed with captured energy. She didn't hide the technology. She celebrated it. The car's body panels themselves became energy collectors, painted with special conductive materials that shimmered and shifted in the light. When she unveiled it at a downtown exhibition, people didn't just see a car. They saw the future made beautiful. Art critics called it transformative. Engineers called it brilliant. But Mia just called it Tuesday. Because for her, this was just the beginning. She's now working on entire vehicle designs that integrate energy capture so seamlessly that you'd never know the car was anything but ordinary until you realized it never stops running. Up in Seattle, a college student named Eric proved you don't need money to innovate. With barely enough cash for textbooks, Eric scavenged parts from abandoned cell towers, old radio equipment, anything with the right components. His professors thought he was wasting his time. His thesis advisor tried to steer him toward more conventional projects. But Eric had that stubborn streak that all true innovators share. He knew he was onto something. His 2001 Honda Civic looked like it had been through a war. Mismatched panels, exposed wiring, duct tape holding various parts together. But that ugly little car drove from Seattle to Spokane and back without using a drop of fuel. His thesis defense became the most attended presentation in the university's history. Professors from other departments showed up. Local media crowded the hallways. Here was a kid with no budget who'd achieved what million-dollar research labs hadn't even attempted. New York City presented unique challenges and unique solutions. Anthony, a delivery driver, was spending more on gas than rent, and if you know New York, that's saying something. Stop-and-go traffic was eating him alive financially. But Anthony had something most people don't: desperation mixed with determination. That's a powerful combination. Working with engineers at a Brooklyn makerspace, sharing tools, knowledge, and plenty of coffee, Anthony slowly transformed his delivery van. The city's dense signal environment, usually seen as electronic pollution, became his power source. Every cell tower, every Wi-Fi router, every radio station added to his vehicle's energy intake. Now Anthony cruises from borough to borough, making deliveries all day without ever pulling into a gas station. His boss thought he was stealing fuel at first. Now his boss wants to convert the entire fleet. Anthony went from barely surviving to consulting for logistics companies interested in sustainable delivery solutions. Phoenix brought us the heartwarming tale of Mike and Dylan, a father-son team who turned weekend bonding into world-changing innovation. Mike brought the practical electrical knowledge. Dylan brought the fresh perspective and coding skills. Together, they built something neither could have achieved alone. Their family van doesn't just transport them. It powers their entire garage workshop. During the brutal Arizona summers when everyone else is suffering blackouts from overtaxed power grids, Mike and Dylan's house stays cool, powered by their van sitting in the driveway. They've started hosting weekend workshops, teaching other families how to work together on sustainable projects. It's become more than technical education. It's about reconnecting, about parents and kids finding common ground through common goals. The waiting list for their workshops is 6 months long. People fly in from other states just to learn from them. But Mike and Dylan keep it simple, keep it accessible, keep it real. Chicago gave us Lisa, an engineer with a vision that extends far beyond personal vehicles. She saw the potential for entire cities to transform their transportation infrastructure. Starting with her own small car as a proof of concept, Lisa developed systems that could scale up to buses, delivery trucks, even trains. She's now working with universities and city planners, showing them data, demonstrating possibilities, breaking down the barriers between what is and what could be. Lisa's approach is methodical, scientific, irrefutable. She doesn't make wild claims or promises. She shows results. Her car runs continuously through Chicago's brutal winters and sweltering summers. It handles the city's notorious traffic without breaking a sweat. More importantly, it's proving that this technology isn't just for perfect conditions or ideal scenarios. It works in the real world with real challenges for real people. Finally, out in Boulder, Colorado, Tyler took everything to the next level. This young inventor didn't just want a self-powered car. He wanted to push the absolute limits of what's possible. His Subaru doesn't just power itself. It generates excess energy that runs his entire workshop. 3D printers, computers, welding equipment, all running on captured atmospheric energy. Tyler's design is so efficient that he's actually feeding power back into his neighborhood during peak usage times. When investors came knocking with million-dollar offers, Tyler did something that shocked everyone. He released all his designs online, completely free, no strings attached. His reasoning was simple. This technology is too important to be locked behind patents and corporate greed. It belongs to humanity. Within days, makers around the world were replicating his designs, improving them, sharing their modifications. Tyler didn't become a millionaire, but he became something more valuable, a catalyst for global change. These 10 stories aren't isolated incidents. They're part of something bigger, something that's spreading faster than anyone anticipated. Online forums are exploding with discussions, designs, success stories, and yes, plenty of failures too. But that's the beauty of it. Every failure teaches something. Every mistake leads to improvement. This isn't top-down innovation imposed by corporations. This is bottom-up revolution created by people who got tired of waiting for someone else to solve the problem. The technical details vary from build to build, but the core principle remains constant. Energy is everywhere. It's in radio waves from broadcast towers, signals from satellites, emissions from power lines, vibrations from movement, heat differentials in the air. We're swimming in energy. We just never learned how to catch it. Until now. What's really mind-blowing is how accessible this is becoming. You don't need an engineering degree. You don't need venture capital. You need curiosity, patience, and the willingness to learn. Components can be salvaged from old electronics. Instructions are freely shared online. Communities of builders support each other through challenges. This isn't exclusive technology for the elite. This is democratic innovation at its finest. The environmental implications are staggering. Imagine if just 10% of vehicles in America became self-powered. The reduction in emissions would be equivalent to planting billions of trees. The decreased demand for oil would reshape geopolitics. The reduced strain on the electrical grid would prevent blackouts and lower energy costs for everyone. But more than environmental impact, this is about human potential. It's about proving that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. It's about showing that innovation doesn't require permission or massive funding. It just requires the courage to try. Each person in these stories faced ridicule. They were called dreamers, fools, scammers. Friends questioned their sanity. Family members worried about wasted time and money. But they persisted. Not because they were sure they'd succeed, but because they couldn't live with themselves if they didn't try. And now they're driving proof that impossible is just an opinion. The movement is accelerating. Universities are adding courses on atmospheric energy harvesting. Maker spaces are hosting build workshops. Local governments are exploring pilot programs. What started in garages is entering mainstream consciousness. But the heroes of this story aren't the institutions finally paying attention. They're the individuals who started building before anyone believed it was possible. So where does this leave you? Sitting there, reading this, maybe feeling that spark of possibility? The tools exist. The knowledge is available. The community is waiting. The only question is whether you'll be someone who watches the revolution or someone who builds it. Because right now, in thousands of garages across the country, people just like you are picking up tools and changing the world. They're not waiting for permission. They're not waiting for the perfect moment. They're starting now, today, with whatever they have. The future isn't arriving in some corporate laboratory or government facility. It's being assembled by your neighbors, welded by retired workers, programmed by college students, and painted by artists. It's democracy in its purest form. Power, literal and metaphorical, returning to the people. This isn't the end of the story. It's barely the beginning. Every day, new builders join the movement. Every week, designs improve. Every month, the impossible becomes more possible. The question isn't whether self-powered vehicles will become mainstream. It's how fast it'll happen and whether you'll be part of making it happen. So next time you're stuck in traffic, burning gas you can't afford, breathing fumes you don't want to inhale, remember this. Somewhere, right now, someone just like you is driving past without burning a single drop of fuel. Their car is powered by the same invisible energy surrounding your vehicle at this very moment. The only difference between you and them? They decided to stop waiting and start building. The revolution isn't coming. It's here. It's humming quietly in garages and workshops across America. It's driven by ordinary people who refuse to accept that change only comes from the top down. They proved that with some wire, some salvaged parts, and a lot of determination, anyone can tap into the endless energy that surrounds us all. And if a teacher in Texas, a farmer in Montana, a student in Seattle, and a delivery driver in New York can do it, what's stopping you? The energy is there, floating through the air around you right now. All you have to do is reach out and catch it. The future is literally in your hands. The only question left is, what are you going to build with it? Remember, every revolution started with someone who said, what if? What if cars didn't need gas? What if energy was free? What if ordinary people could change everything? Well, now we know. They can. They are. And maybe, just maybe, you're next. So share this story. Tell your friends. Start that conversation. Because the more people who know this is possible, the faster we can make it reality for everyone. The self-powered future isn't waiting for you at some charging station. It's waiting in your garage, ready to be built, one circuit at a time.